The dream of upscalers like PSSR, yes, we're talking about PSSR 2 today, is that the games that you want to play that you maybe couldn't play, you can play. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. But the reality is a little bit more complicated than that, and that's what this video is. Also checking out PSSR 2, because it's a new thing. It makes the graphics of the games look a little bit better. So PlayStation just released PSSR 2 with the new Resident Evil game. Now, of course, I'm not a Resident Evil person. I'm a racing game man. But with it, they added an amazing option that I kind of didn't expect them to do. I thought we would have to wait for every game to get an update before we saw this. You will have to manually go in and do this because it doesn't actually automatically do it, even if you've got auto downloads on. Anyway, go to video output and you'll notice enhanced PSSR image quality. An upgraded PSSR PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution model to improve image quality in some supported games. The good news is that they're actually doing this option. I didn't expect them to do this, which means PSSR games from studios that maybe not even exist anymore will be able to continually improve the quality of the game to a point, obviously. Anyway, let's stop yapping and dive into look at what this is actually gonna look like. So my initial experience with the PlayStation 5 Pro was that there isn't much point in upgrading, honestly. Pushing on over a year and some change, it's still a little bit messy. GTA 6 could be the title to completely turn that around, but of course, GTA 6 isn't out yet. And, you know, we'll see if that actually happens. But I wanted to start with Gran Turismo because this probably is the best case scenario for PSSR. I mean, ultimately, every other game kind of followed PlayStation's formula of saying, well, it's a set it and forget it situation. It should just play at the highest resolution possible. There's some of the games, the Crew, that we'll be looking at a little bit later that kind of took this too literally, and I think technically the PlayStation Pro version of this game has worse quality, no, factually worse quality than the base PS5. I have no control over that. It's kind of stupid. Ivory Tower. You see, Gran Turismo is a bit of a weird one because let me explain. You've got ray tracing for PlayStation 5 Pro. You can prioritize frame rate or you can prioritize ray tracing and resolution. Cool. You've got 120 hertz output, which you can turn on or off, which means generally you'll get 120 FPS. In fact, we've seen this possible on the base hardware. And again, because the PS5 Pro does have a slightly more powerful GPU, you do get better frame rates just at the top end to kind of round that up to solid 120. You've got 8K support, which is probably some form of upsampling using PSSR. You've got VR, which can be improved based on the fact that, and PSSR, you can also completely disable it. You don't have to have it on. And as you can clearly see, these are the settings I've been using since I've had the PS5 Pro. I have had no intent to use PSSR, which is wild because you would think it would be an if or maybe, but if no. In this game, on the native 4K 60, with ray tracing, solid, no problems. Okay, so what's the point of PSSR being an option? I don't know. Literally makes it worse if you're doing 4K 60. If you're going higher than that, that's why it makes sense. But the confusing thing is I can enable PSSR and keep 120 hertz off. Why? Why would anyone do that? But again, I'm not going to complain because more options is more good. It's just really confusing. The Gran Turismo is the only game that does this. It almost felt like they were preparing for a PC version that just never came out. As I said, the Crew Motorfest on PS5 Pro is genuinely stupid. You are forced to use PSSR whether you like it or not. And so here we have video settings, and all I can do is brightness, dynamic range, and turn on and off HDR. Look. Again, I get it in the original idea. PlayStation told people to do this. It's the best of both worlds. But it doesn't quite reach native 4K. I think from memory, it's running at something like 1800p, officially told by Ivory Tower. Which, again, maybe the resolution jumps up a little bit more recently, or it's lower. I don't know. The advantage is that you just don't have to do anything, and I get that. But options are better, man. If I want to take a picture, I should be able to set native 4K. None of this upscaled rubbish. So, Ivory Tower, this is once again me telling you, please, give me back the options. And also an option to do the thing. Where is it? Immersive mode. I want to map that button. All right, let me map it. So what you'll notice throughout most of these is the changes are pretty small. Reality is, we may see some improvements as the actual update comes out specifically for the title, but as of right now, it hasn't, so you kind of have to force it. But PSSR 1, you can notice on the left, you can see some graininess in the distance, and one of the big pinpoint ones is that the windows are literally shaking on PSSR 1. There you go. There's a much more stable image with PSSR 2. Moving on to Gran Turismo, once again, this is just a kind of overview of what it looks like. For the most part, again, if you're looking on a phone, you're not going to see massive amounts of detail, but if you are on a larger screen, definitely kind of look at distance details. For example, jagged edges on fences, some grass blades, for example. You're going to be pixel peeping for the most part. Gran Turismo is a pretty stunning game and runs at quite a high resolution. Once again, this is the home page, PSSR 1, PSSR 2, in case you wanted to have a look at those two side by side without the, you know, overall existence of the non-PSSR version. This one, look at the house, look at the trees, a bit sharper, bit more detailed, less noise, less grain. It's kind of what you're looking at with PSSR 2. As you've seen by the comparisons we've had today, for the most part, we've kind of pinpointed specific areas that have seen the most improvement. And for the most part, it's not huge. There are some cases in Gran Turismo that I've noticed, maybe the interiors, actually a decent change there. But it is mostly fences, really thin, small areas that basically had troubles before because they're really small. If you're rendering at a lower resolution and then stretching it out, you're going to see those really just awful edges much clearer. This does a much better job at smoothing those edges out and making them look quite sharp. I'd say smoothing and sharpening at the same time, but you can finally see the edges that are not just ugly and jagged and horrible. Trees in the distance, also a really nice one. It used to be quite muddy, blocky, pixely, very noisy is the way to describe it, especially in the distance. Most of this stuff is in the distance, but if you're talking about rendering at 4K, the final output being 4K, and most people are playing on like decent sized screens these days, well, you're going to notice the differences. Hell, even on my smaller screen, I play on 27, 28-inch screens for the most part. I noticed these details, and you saw my initial reaction. I was just kind of like, I felt like there was very little purpose here, because the main thing that's really frustrating is that this would actually be more helpful for the base PlayStation than the Pro PlayStation, which has more power, so should run at higher resolutions anyway. It's a very, like, I know why, but it's very annoying. But the good news is that in the future, this means that we'll see further improvements to the models probably in the same way. So if you keep that setting on and all is fine, when they update to PSSR 3, or when you go to a PS6 or PS7, or the portable version of the PS6 that's rumored, we should actually see some significant improvements to games that are evolved. Not like back in the day where we had Drive Club, an incredible game that's kind of trapped at 1080-30 unless you know, emulate it. Which, you know, the best way to play PlayStation games is to emulate them. Sony, you can't do this to us. And even get me started on the PS3 games, we can't even play them. But all to say, that's positive. That's a good thing. Now, shout out quickly to Real Rob Gaming. This is a channel that I found while doing my own digging on YouTube to try and find other people's comparisons to see if it was actually worth my time creating this video. And yeah, it turns out it is. Actually, thank you to Real Rob Gaming, because a lot of the comparisons, I mean, I get it. It's difficult to do a comparison. We all know that Digital Foundry is going to make the best comparison you've seen. So, I mean, they haven't done it on other games yet, and that's probably coming, but I thought it was pretty good. The confusing element, obviously, is that the people that need this the most are on the older hardware. We're talking base PS5 would really benefit from upscaling the resolution to look better, or to perform better. I understand why, because there's no AI in it, and blah, 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 all this neural crap. FSR works on old GPUs. You can pull a GPU out of a PC that's older than you and run FSR and see improvements. I mean, it's, again, going to not be as good as what you can get available from, like, the current models that are used specific kind of neural crap. But the fact is, the option could be there. But the point is, the people that need it the most can't use it. You may have heard of frame generation. This is usually part of these technologies. This one is more upsampler, but it's part of the same idea. It's to all boost the performance, make the game run better, while actually maybe it runs a little bit like crap on the back end. Lower the resolution, increase the frame rate more with frame gen. But the reality is, if you don't already get a solid frame rate of like 60 from experience on PC, it's gonna run like dog anyway, and 60 is perfectly fine. So I don't need to run more than 60. It gets all delayed and sluggish, and it's not nice. I'm one that doesn't really care too much about like the details, or there's a bit of input lag there. If I notice, it's bad. But the improvements to visual quality, they're welcome. I definitely am happy to see that. Who wouldn't be? So does this change my opinion on the PlayStation 5 Pro? Should you get a PlayStation 5 Pro? And I think it's still kind of the same. If you've got a base PS5, I would still at this point say just hang on to it. I mean, the PlayStation 6 is supposedly coming out in the next year or two, and as is the next Xbox if you're going that way. If you're planning to get a PS5 Pro, get one soon. The world's just getting more expensive. This is the first time things are getting more expensive throughout the generation and not cheaper. Just get it if you're planning to get it. But again, remember the PS6 is probably going to be better than the PS5 Pro. I really hope so, at least, anyway. So overall, a nice little update, and it makes me more excited for improvements in the future. But so far, well, yeah, it's all right.